Hi everyone, it's Philip here from Small Caps. Thank you for joining us. Today we have the CEO and Managing Director of BioGene Technology in Richard Jagger joining us. The stock code is BGT. The company listed on the ASX in November of last year and is an Australian ag-tech development company that's enabling the next generation of insecticides aimed at addressing the global problems of insecticide resistance and toxicity. Now Richard, can you start off by giving our audience an overview of what BioGene is all about?
Yeah, so I guess BioGene's goal is to develop and deliver new and effective insecticide technology. So what we actually have is a group of technologies based on a platform of chemistry called beta-triketones, a family of chemistry. And these products were originally found through a flora screening in Australia where there was a screening done on a number of different molecules, and these came out with some evidence of some insecticidal activity. So what's interesting from that, we have a natural source, and we're able to pull out an oil from a rare cultivar of eucalyptus, a species called Eucalyptus cloesiana, but it's a cultivar of that has very high levels of a certain beta-triketone. And so we're able to harvest that as a natural product, but we're also able to synthesize other molecules within this family of beta-triketones. So we can make what we call nature-identical molecules. They're the same as what would be found in nature, but we can synthesize them, which means in certain situations where we need larger scale, we can produce them in larger amounts. So that's the kind of technology. We have these two products, a natural and a synthetic molecule or molecules at this stage. And what's really interesting about these is that we've discovered that the technology is quite novel in the way it works, and that is what we call a unique mode of action. So the way it actually controls or kills the pests that we're targeting. What we've been able to identify through third-party discovery is that the method that it uses to kill these insects, these target pests, is very different than anything else on the market today.
And Richard, you just mentioned the novel mode of action. Why is this so important?
So over time, what we find with chemistry we use is that populations of insects or pests can develop resistance to that. And that could be either through misuse or overuse and just natural variation of Mother Nature doing its thing to combat what we try to put up against it. So over time, the products and the weapons we have, if you like, to control pests get diminished and get reduced in their effectiveness through resistance. So having a novel mode of action is something that means it's a new way of controlling insects that these insects haven't been exposed to before. So they haven't developed resistance to this stage, which means theoretically that they're controllable with a new compound, even if they're resistant to other molecules. So obviously that's important for controlling pests where we run out of options with other chemistry to control them. But it also means that in certain circumstances, by using combinations or using a protocol where we use a number of different types of chemistry over a period of time, we can protect both the existing and new chemistry from resistance developing over time.
And in what markets could BioGene's technology be effective?
A lot of potential applications for the technology through a number of market segments, and we would classify those as follows. Public health, and that's mainly around control of vectors that carry disease. So that's mosquitoes and in some cases ticks, and think of classic diseases such as malaria, dengue fever, Zika virus, etc. That's one big avenue that we're looking at. In animal health, there's the area of both production animals, so cows and sheep in particular, and companion animals and controlling pests in those. Crop protection and what we call grain storage, so that is controlling pests in the crop as it's growing. That will cause damage as it's growing. But also once it's come off and we've got a grain harvested, is protecting that grain once it's in a storage situation. And that's a very difficult area too, with resistance developing to a lot of the chemistry that we're using today. So protecting the crop in the ground, but also once The other area we see potential is in consumer applications. So that's things like household sprays and personal repellents, where people would really see an advantage in the natural product and using that around their family and in their house environments, etc.
And what kind of results have you seen in the testing of the technology so far?
So we've done a number of initial screenings on a number of different types of pests across these market segments as we try to really understand which one of these segments or which ones would be the most effective to go after first. And what's really great is we're seeing some really good results around controlling particularly resistant pests, and that is, pests that are resistant to what we call the typical chemistry that's been used or the incumbent chemistry. And that will be different across different segments, market segments, etc. But we've got some consistency that where we see pests are hard to control or we've lost control using current chemistry, that we have an ability to control those resistant pests. Again, that's further evidence that we are working in a different mode of action and that they haven't had a chance to develop any resistance at this stage to that to this chemistry. So that's really exciting, and that's the opportunities that we can take to our potential partners and say, you've got expertise in marketing and commercialising products in these market segments. This is some results we're getting to date. And, hopefully that's an opportunity that we could start working with some people to develop specific formulations and products for particular market applications.
Richard, how do you see the development of the technology progressing into the future?
So we need to keep doing that, I guess. We need to keep working on the efficacy, we call it, of our product across these target pests. And often, we'll do some tests and it will kind of show up some areas that we perhaps can explore a bit further to show some further development opportunities. So there's continued work to do that, and that's what we expect to do further over this year. At the same time, we're spending a lot of time on the toxicology profiles of the product, and it's really important that we understand the safety of our products as we go forward. And that's also a big part of developing a portfolio of information that we would need for registration of the active ingredient when we're ready to do that. The other work we're doing is in the manufacture, both of the synthetic product, but you also think about it from a natural, and that is growing the right trees in the right place and harvesting those trees the right way and extracting the oil in the right way to get the maximum kind of amounts out. And so we're working with different groups on both that synthetic process and improving that as much as we can, and also the natural form of growing trees the right way and extracting oil the right way. So that's a big part of it as well, and important from a commercial aspect as we go forward to make sure we can make the products as commercially viable as possible. The other area, of course, that we're working on is our IP. We do own patents around the use of this technology, but we don't want to rest there. We want to continue to develop our IP package and protect our technology going forward. So we have made applications for new patents, and we're collecting data around that to support those patents. We've also gained a lot of information that we may not put up as patents, but we'll keep as internal information about, again, how we would produce the products for market applications and protect our position in the market. And those kind of things are really important to our commercial partners down the track to make sure that what they're gaining from us has some protection for them in their marketplaces. And, they've got some assurity of uniqueness, if you like, for their investment in the processes going forward.
Now, you've recently made some announcements regarding Flavicide's activity against mosquitoes, which was important for the company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting application. So the mosquitoes is mainly around public health, and that's kind of the work we've been doing lately. And we've been fortunate enough to work with Purdue University in the United States, based in Indiana, one of the biggest agricultural schools in the US. And they've got a lab that's got a lot of expertise in looking at novel chemistry, particularly to control mosquitoes and ticks, but in this case mosquitoes that are potentially or are resistant to other chemistry and what's being used today. And that's the initial results on that are really interesting and really positive. And that's a big area because mosquitoes are known to kill a lot of people around the world and cause a lot of misery and heartache and keep people in poverty and spread a lot of diseases. And so there's a lot of interest globally for how we address these issues as the potential for these mosquitoes that spread these diseases, their environments are growing as we change our urban environments and they move into those areas as we grow into them. So it's a growing problem globally, and it's becoming not just a third world problem, but a first world problem with things like Zika turning up in the US now. Big concern from the US government about that. So it's a high-profile area that gives our business some real opportunity for exposure, but also hopefully is some real opportunity for delivering some products that can do a lot of good and work with a lot of different companies and even philanthropic organisations that could help us bring this technology to market.
Sounds like there's some exciting opportunities there for a bit of collaboration. But now moving back to more the nuts and bolts of the company, you yourself, Richard, you're quite new to the role of CEO at BioGene. Can you give us a little bit of a background on yourself and also some other key personnel at the organisation?
Yes, I've only been at the CEO role from the start of this year. I've been involved with BioGene from about April last year, so still very new. But my background has been in large agricultural companies. I worked for an American company called Monsanto for many, many years, and also a Chinese company called Sinochem, which is a very big crop protection company. So one of the exposures I had in those companies is how big companies access new technology for their portfolios and for their customer solutions. And that's not always done in-house. They often have to look outside for discoveries and new technologies from small companies. So I can see how the fit of what BioGene produces and what we're working on can work well in big commercial companies like that would have gaps in their portfolio that they need to fill. Experience in working on that side of the fence, if you like, does help me in being able to understand what kind of things they're looking for and how they need to address their problems. So that's a little on my side. One of the things that's really impressed me with the company from day one is the level of expertise and experience we've been able to draw into the company. So an example is our chairman, Don Brumley, is an ex-Ernst & Young audit partner for many, many years. A great person to have bring us through this period of, being a pre-listed company to post-listing and understanding the compliance and due diligence around what we need to do to be a listed company and to do the right thing and to, manage the funds and the processes and protocols that we have in place now that we've attracted a lot of investment. There's a lot of experience. The ex-CEO and now on the board, Robert Klupax, has worked in the biotech space and the salad space for many, many years and has a great track record of bringing new technology to market. He's instrumental to us going forward as well. I'm really excited about a couple of the advisors we have to the company. One is Doug Rathbone. He's a former CEO of Nufarm, based here in Australia. Has an incredibly good track record with that company and bringing into world focus and a world leader in agricultural products. And I dare say there's very few people that know more about agriculture in the world than Doug. And so it's great to be able to use him as an advisor to the work we're doing, the approach we're taking with potential customers, and also access to certain people that we may not normally get, but with his connections and understanding of the world, he's able to put us in touch with the right people. I just mentioned one other collaborator we have. I mentioned Purdue University, and a professor of entomology there is a person by the name of Catherine Hill, and her lab has overseen the work we've done on the mosquito work and our technology. She's also agreed to become a member of our scientific advisory board, which is really important, that we have some people that can collaborate with us and understand a lot of the research we're getting in from a lot of different collaborators across a number of different target pest species, etc., to help us really make sure we're focusing on the research that we need to do, and that we're interpreting the results the right way, and then asking the right questions of those collaborators and understanding the direction we need to go going forward. So she's also incredibly well connected into that world of vector control, the spread of disease, and the development of novel chemistry around that. So her network of people, both in the scientific and even in the commercial community, is really important for us to be able to meet the right people and explain what we're doing and what our technology is, and hopefully bring some more people in on the journey. So, again, for a little company, I think we've got a really great group of people with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge around what we need to do to hopefully be successful bringing this technology to market.
And one last question before we wrap things up here today, Richard. What milestones and news flow can investors look forward to in the year ahead?
Yeah, with a lot of the work we're doing, what we're excited about is we have a lot of projects going on which will mean a lot of news flow. So I mentioned around the efficacy work, or the efficiency of how it works on target pests. There's a number of different research organisations around the country, but also overseas, that are doing work for us. And over time, over this year, they will be delivering the results to us, and we'll be able to share those results with the investment community. I mentioned the manufacturing side of it, the organisations that are working with that will deliver some really good results and some developments in those areas. The patent work that we're developing on, it'll be great once we'll be able to talk in kind of context about some of the work we're doing about our new patent information. The mode of action stuff, which again is a bit hush-hush because of it's important at the moment, but we expect to be able to talk about that in more detail later in the year, and hopefully even with the scientists involved, do some peer-reviewed publications around that, again, which is really important and helps project the value of the technology through third-party endorsement, if you like, not just us telling the world how good it is, but the science actually explaining the value and the applicability, if you like, of the technology. So, the other side, of course, is our toxicology continues, as I mentioned, and we'll be updating people on that. So, we expect on a really regular basis to be able to have announcements coming out about how we're moving forward with our technology. And the great thing about that is we can keep our investors informed about, the developments and how we're moving forward, which is really exciting.
Well, we appreciate your time today, Richard, and look forward to the upcoming news flow. Thanks for joining us here at Small Caps.
Philip, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for listening to our story.